So just to review, you will not answer whether your statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more for the conflict.
Senator Jon Ossoff did not come to this hearing to shout. He came with dates, day 3, day 5, day 14, 3 weeks later, 4 months later. Each date carried Pete Hegseth's own words. Iran destroyed, missiles obliterated, every objective achieved. But Hegseth was now under oath, asking Congress for tens of billions more. Ossoff's question was precise. If the war was already won, why was the bill still growing? And if every objective had been achieved, why could the secretary not simply say his own statement was true? Watch how the timeline enters the record.
On day 14 of this conflict, Mr. Secretary, day 14, nearly 5 months ago, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. That was on day 14 of the war. Was that an accurate statement?
They didn't have a Navy any longer. It was completely sunk. Their missiles were buried underneath a lot of their underground facilities, and their defense industrial base has been almost completely destroyed. So as far as a military assessment of Iran's capabilities, it didn't mean by any stretch of the imagination absolute zero, but their capabilities at the lowest level they've been in a very long time.
On day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no?
Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14, Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no, was that an accurate statement?
What the American military has done to the Iranian military is a historic military defeat, and they're ineffective in that context.
3 weeks later, you declared victory. That was now nearly 4 months ago. 3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Had Iran's military been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come? That was a statement that you made 4 months ago.
They had 160 naval vessels
in the Blue Water Navy,
and they're gone. Their Air Force is completely combat ineffective, and they don't have a defense industrial base. So describe to me a country that doesn't have an Air Force, a Navy, or a defense industrial base, and I will describe to you a country that does not have an effective military. It can lob missiles.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been, for the last 4 months, combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
You stated we had, quote,
build at the level it did before, not even close. It doesn't mean it doesn't have capabilities.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Their main sites were obliterated. We're watching over them, and we're holding them at issue. If they don't give them up at the table, there's other ways we can take them away.
Early in the conflict
Iran will
on
never
day
have
3,
a nuclear weapon.
Mr. Secretary, early in the conflict, day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat, and as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
No one ever stated that every single missile was gone. Ultimately, combat ineffective means they're not able to dig them out of their UGFs and shoot at us.
Had the missile threat
It doesn't mean they don't have underground
4 months
facilities
ago?
where they put missiles in them and hold on to them because they're the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. So we never expected they would stop having capabilities to shoot. The question is at scale against an opponent like the United States of America, which went toe-to-toe with them and Iran couldn't.
You stated on March 8th, day 9 of the war, on 60 Minutes, you assured the American people of Iranian surrender. Does that remain your prediction?
Ultimately, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon to threaten the United States of America. That has been the objective, and it remains so.
So just to review, You will not answer whether your statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more
The
for the conflict.
senator's time has
Had a
expired.
historic and effective military campaign against the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Won't
and
answer
will
the
ensure they
question.
never
Senator
get a new
Peters
weapon, Senator.
is recognized.
What Ossoff exposed was a gap between the words used to sell the war and the answers given under oath. Hegseth had spoken in absolute terms. On day 14, according to Ossoff's questioning, he said Iran's military had been destroyed and made combat ineffective. 3 weeks later, he called Operation Epic Fury a historic and overwhelming victory. He said Iran had been rendered combat ineffective for years to come. He said every objective had been achieved. Then, 4 months later, he was back before Congress asking for tens of billions more. That entered the record. Ossoff did not bring a theory. He brought a timeline. Day 3, destroy the missile threat. Day 5, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Day 14, the military was described as neutralized. 3 weeks later, victory. 4 months later, more funding and no yes or no answer. The problem with Hegseth's response is that it answered a narrower question than the one he was asked. He testified about damage, a sunk navy, buried missiles, a weakened air force, a damaged defense industrial base. He argued that Iran had been set back by years, possibly decades, but Ossoff was not asking whether the United States inflicted serious damage. He was asking whether the secretary's public statements were accurate when he made them. That matters. In sworn testimony, precision is not cosmetic. It is the difference between a record and a slogan. Every objective achieved is not the same thing as the main objective remains under watch. Combat ineffective for years to come is not the same thing as they still have capabilities, and saying no one claimed every missile was gone does not erase earlier statements about destroying the missile threat. That is the pattern Ossoff put on the permanent record: a public victory claim, a later funding request, a witness who describes military damage but does not cleanly reconcile the old language with the new reality. This is bigger than one hearing. It is about how power accounts for itself after it asks the public to trust it. War is not financed with rhetoric. It is financed with public money. Money that could go to veterans, hospitals, disaster recovery, schools, infrastructure, or families carrying the cost of government decisions. When officials declare success, Congress has a duty to ask what success means. When they ask for more money after declaring victory, Congress has a duty to ask why. And when the answer shifts from certainty to qualification, the public has a right to notice. The question was not whether the campaign did damage. The question was whether the country was told the full truth about what that damage meant. Hegseth never closed that gap. The war was called won. The record showed the bill was still open.